listening to Meet the Thriller Author. I am your host, Alan Peterson, and this is the podcast where I interview authors of mysteries, thrillers, and suspense books. And this is episode number 39. It's the first episode of 2017. So I hope you had a great holiday season and a happy new year and all that good stuff. And this episode is going to feature an interview with Carmen Amato. Before I get to the interview, though, I just wanted to make a little quick announcement here. Been posting new episodes of the podcast, new interviews every week on Tuesdays for the past few months. But in 2017, I really need to focus on my writing and my publishing. So I'm going to scale that back a bit. Right now, the plan is to go bi-weekly. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Hope you understand. I love doing this podcast and meeting new authors in the genre that I love to read and the genre that I write in. But I need to focus on my books as well. So I'm going to be doing that in 2017. But we'll continue posting new interviews. And right now we'll go with bi-weekly and we'll play it by ear, see how that goes throughout the year. So thank you for understanding and thank you for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate it. And without any further ado, let's get on with the interview with Carmen Amato. She's the author of romantic thrillers and the Detective Emilia Cruz mystery series, which is set in Acapulco, Mexico. So it's a fascinating series. I'm reading one of her books right now, so I'm excited to bring this interview to you. Carmen, how are you doing?
Hey, Alan, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast. I appreciate it.
How did you find me?
I was thinking about that. Did you have a book bub recently?
Yes, I did. I did.
That's what it was. I get those emails for the thrillers and crime books and stuff. And your cover really jumped out at me. And then I read their little blurb. And the fact that I was set in Mexico really got my interest. I was born and raised in Costa Rica. So I'm like, oh, cool, like a Latin America type thriller. So I was all over that. So when I started reading, I'm like, oh, I'm going to ask her if she wants to be on the show. And happily you said yes.
Hey, that's great. Yeah, those new covers really are eye-catching. I have to give a big shout-out to Matt Chase. He's a Washington, D.C.-based illustrator and graphic artist. He's done some big things with big papers. I think he was in the Wall Street Journal not so long ago with a beautiful illustration for them. And I just found him on a site, and I'm sorry to say, I don't even remember, but it was a site featuring fonts from different graphic artists, and he had a font there, and I was really taken with it, sent him an email, and he's now done 5 covers. He's done all of the Emilia Cruz detective series covers, and wow, I really saw sales jump when those covers went up.
Well, that's amazing. Yes, you always hear the importance of covers because really we only have a few seconds. Like with you, on BookBub, they have it's like a little parade of covers, and that's the first thing attention is to the covers. And your covers are phenomenal. I really like we'll get to where your books are set and everything, but they really kind of have like the Mexican cultural colors. Is that something? I mean, did you discuss that when you were getting into the covers?
You nailed it.
Cool.
Oh, Ellen, you got it. This is great. Yes, when I first said to Matt, I want something with the rich, saturated colors of Mexico, and I actually sent him some pictures of the town of San Miguel de Allende, because there's a lot of buildings there with that rich lime, lemon, tangerine, hot pink, shrimp pink tones that I associate with Mexico. And he really nailed it.
And can you tell us a little bit now about your background? How long you've been writing and how did you get started?
I've always loved writing stories, but it was when my husband's job took us to Mexico that I really decided to write some fiction. I had done 2 books for my son about aviation. He was just crazy for aviation when he was in elementary school. He's now a senior in college, so that was quite a while ago. And I wrote 2 kids thrillers for the YA audience, actually, all about aviation. But I had an agent, and she shopped him around and said, these are great, but nobody says there's money in aviation fiction. They were sort of a Hardy Boys meets Dale Brown type of book. So, I felt a little bad about that, put them in a drawer. But the experience taught me that I could actually do a novel. So we were in Mexico at the time. I was really looking at a lot of social inequality on a day-to-day basis, and decided I would write a book about Mexican social structures. But, that was just going to be another nonfiction book from an author who really didn't have anything except her own observations to hang her hat on with that. So I decided, hey, let's make this a thriller. I've proven to myself I can write a novel, I can do dialogue, and I wrote The Hidden Light of Mexico City. I started it when we were in Mexico. I finished it, about 8 years later. I really didn't know the structure of writing a thriller at the time, and I first wrote it all from the female character's point of view, and then had a lot of sequences where people are explaining things to her. And anyways, it took me a little while and a really great critique group to help me formulate that into what I think is probably the best thing I've ever written, The Hidden Light of Mexico City. I published that 4.5 years ago, and then got a little faster, got a little smarter, and really have been very lucky with critique groups and editors, and building that village that a successful indie author needs to really have things take off. And I've been very lucky in finding the people who can help me not only polish my craft, but help me negotiate contracts.
And is their first book? Is it a standalone, The Hidden Lights of Mexico City?
That's a standalone. It's a romantic thriller. It's a Cinderella story with a very Mexican feel to it. I was actually told when I first went to publish it and I started looking for an agent that a novel with all Mexican characters was never going to sell. I could never get a New York agent. I should just make some of the characters American. And I said to myself, no, that's not the story I want to tell. I want to tell a story of social inequality, but I also want to make it exciting, and I want to make it a romance. So it's a Cinderella story, it's a standalone, and my second romantic thriller, Awakening Macbeth, just came out this month. So I've now got the two romantic thrillers, but I have to say, in terms of sales, it's the Detective Amelia Cruz series that far outstrips either of the romantic books.
And so when you started writing the Amelia Cruz detective series, is that, it's the police procedural, but it's all set in Mexico, in Acapulco. What made you decide to set it in Acapulco? Is that where you were living when you were in Mexico?
No, but it was my favorite vacation spot. I chose Acapulco because I really just love the city. It's just a gorgeous place, just a beautiful city. But it does have two faces. There's the touristed ring around the bay itself. I mean, the bay is an enormous horseshoe, and all around the lip of that bay, you see the white skyscrapers and the beautiful hotels and the beaches and the best restaurants and sort of the party downtown section. But then you get further north into the very hilly areas and the poorer section of town. And that's not really an area where the tourists go. And that's where the crime rate is very high and where you see a lot of the cartel rivalry that has brought, unfortunately, a lot of violence to the city. So not only was the city had name recognition for an American reader, but you also had this dichotomy that I could use to show the beautiful touristed area in contrast to the areas of the city that are experiencing the great violence. So great setting for so many reasons.
And did you have to do like a lot of research on the Mexican police structure and all that before you started writing these?
Yes, I did. I am a total news junkie, so there is a lot out there about what's going on in Mexico when it comes to police and crime and cartel violence in both English and Spanish. I can manage in Spanish, but there's so much in English that it's pretty easy to find what I need.
And it's I find it really fascinating. I was reading the book your book, and the whole fact that a female, not only you're using all the stuff in Mexico, but then putting a female in that machismo culture, has been very fascinating to read that. Is that something also that you were thinking about when you were going to write this, that you wanted to tackle that as well, the way females are viewed?
Absolutely. And I started with that theme a little bit in The Hidden Light of Mexico City, that first romantic thriller standalone novel. The whole societal tension as Mexico, kind of becomes a more mature place and deals with social change. So Emilia, I liked writing a female character. I'm most comfortable with a female protagonist, and I wanted to put her in a pressure cooker. When I first came up with the concept, my husband said, "Oh, make her a private investigator," and I said, "No, I wanted her to be a cop, because then she can't leave the environment. She's got to stay on the case. She's got her pension to think about. She can't just walk away, whereas she could if she was a PI and didn't like the case." So I wanted to put this female in this pressure cooker environment. I wanted her to be looking for female role models. To a certain extent, that's the mayor of Acapulco, that character. And I wanted her to be able to hold her own. What was she going to have to do to hold her own, not only in this sea of machismo that is the detective squad room that I've created, but how is she going to be a woman who has a relationship and has a family and juggles it all at the same time? So I hope readers, take her to heart, find her an authentic person, and somebody who can appeal not just to an audience who might be familiar with the Latin culture or have visited Mexico, but just anybody who is a mystery fan.
Yeah, I think it's really fun to read police procedurals, and when they're set in different countries. I like Jake Needham. I like him. He writes about a Singapore detective. So I think it's kind of cool because you get the different cultural aspects of the book and everything, but you still get the police procedural and the mystery and the thrills of that. So it's a pretty cool merger of a whole bunch of cool things. So yeah, hopefully people will check that out because it's a lot of fun.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm a big fan of mysteries set in other places. I just finished Peter May's Chinese Whispers, which is his sixth and I think the last thriller that he's written, with the protagonist is a Beijing police officer. So really good.
I have to go check that one out. And so do you get your ideas, like you were talking, there's a lot of Mexico's in the news a lot because of the violence. Is that do you get ideas from that when you start writing your Emilia Cruz books?
I do. I get a lot of ideas from the news. I keep clippings, and I'm not really a paperless environment kind of person. I do keep newspaper clippings and printouts in a box. I've got enough content for about 10 more Emilia Cruz novels at this point. It's just deciding which pieces of information I can creatively fit into the world of Amelia Cruz, and how dark a storyline I want to go with.
And
so, go ahead.
I was gonna say, right now you have 5 books in the Amelia Cruz series.
I have 4 novels: Cliff Diver, Hat Dance, Diablo Nights, and King Peso, and 1 collection of short stories which functions as a prequel, and that's Made in Acapulco. And I'm working right now on the 5th novel, which is called Pacific Reaper. And in Pacific Reaper, I'm introducing the cult of Santa Muerta, which is the saint of death, and it's a folk saint that is being embraced by the cartels in Mexico right now. So I'm not going to give away anything, but you're going to get a hefty dose of Mexican folklore.
Yeah, I read about that cult before. It's very creepy.
It is very creepy. It's a little scary, yeah.
I'll have to wait for your book. Yeah, and so before you started writing these thrillers, you said you started with trying to write a YA thriller. Were you a fan of thrillers as a reader?
Yeah, I always have been. Some of my favorite authors are Ian Rankin, who writes the John Rebus mysteries, Martin Cruz Smith, who writes the Arkady Renko series set in Russia, as well as a number of romantic thrillers. So that is my favorite genre to read.
And do you find like the television and pop culture, does that stuff influence your writing? Does that make it into your books?
Not so much. I'm not a big television watcher. I have to admit, I'm much more interested in news programs than NCIS and things like that. I guess I spend a lot of time looking at a screen generating content. I don't necessarily want to look at a screen for entertainment, although I must admit, my son and I did binge watch The Crown on Netflix over the Christmas holiday.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that one. I haven't seen it yet though.
It was so well done, and I never would have thought to have seen a Doctor Who in Matt Smith playing Prince Philip, but he was outstanding.
I'll have to add that to my watch list. And now, are there any similarities between you and your main characters, like with Emilia Cruz?
A lot of people do ask me that. A little bit, although I must admit, Emilia is, well, let's just say her filter is off. She says what she wants to say. It is not always the smartest thing that she could have said. It does get her in trouble. And while I like to keep fit with swimming and yoga, she runs at a higher RPM than I do. Her workouts are all about kickboxing.
Oh.
Yeah. So she's a little gutsier, or at least outwardly gutsier than I am.
And what are some of the challenges that you find when you're starting to writing one of your novels? This is like the research or logistical.
I think one thing that I'm always very focused on is trying to make the books very authentic, make the stories authentic, put you on the street with her. What does it smell like? What is she eating? What are the people around her doing? And also just being authentic to the place. I have a huge, and by now rather tattered, map of Acapulco. It's usually on the wall in front of me. I want to make sure that she's going the right way down a one-way street. So authenticity, making sure that these stories really ring true, and the details are right. So that's challenge number one. And challenge number two is managing my time as a full-time author. I can waste a lot of time. I'm sure there's no other author that has this problem.
Nope, you're the only one.
No, yeah, I'm the only one. But I can spend a lot of time on Pinterest, and I can spend a lot of time fooling around with Photoshop, just for my own, burnishing my own skills.
Yeah, that's those rabbit holes, aren't there? Even when you're doing legit research for a book or something, that's you're starting out researching something, and the next thing you know, you're watching, you're on YouTube or something, and it's like, wait, I'm not researching anymore. I'm wasting time.
Oh, I tell you, there are so many YouTube videos of people who have stuck a GoPro on their dashboard and they're driving through Acapulco. And it's great, but I don't know what street they're going down or, what's going on. And yep, I'm just watching it down the street. Oh, how about that? Yeah, maybe it's that street. I don't remember that. Wasn't there a liquor store there? So, yeah, excellent resource. YouTube is an excellent resource, but definitely a rabbit hole.
Yeah. And what's your writing process like? Are you do you plot extensively, or are you a pantser?
I am a plotter. I am an outliner, and I am a repeat outliner. I start every book by outlining on 3 sticky notes, and I color code it because there's inevitably more than one plot thread going through one of my books. So I will usually have 4 different colors going. I will put it all on a wall, and I do it in a time order so that week 1 in the book, not my week 1 of writing, but the timeline of the book gets 1 row, and that might be 10 sticky notes and 3 or 4 colors. And I will do that because each book is usually it usually covers a 6 to 8 week span of Amelia's life. So I will put all that together. That'll take me a couple hours to create the outline. I'll transfer it to a big poster paper and start working from it. About halfway through, I will usually redo it. And then maybe at about the 3/4 mark, I will redo the last section. But I generally stick to it pretty well. I'm not a, just sit down and let it flow, man. It just won't do it. Yeah. I've got to have an outline.
And do you set yourself goals when you're writing? Like, I'm going to write X amount of words per day? Or?
I wish I did. Donna Andrews, the author of the Meg Lanslow mysteries, the humorous mysteries, she's the chief wrangler in my critique group. And I think she's very good at, she'll say, oh, I met my quota today. I need to do better. I will usually say, okay, this week I have to write chapters 7 and 8 and just bound it that way, which means if I spend a day watching YouTube videos, the next day, boy, I'm really stuck in this chair writing.
Oh yeah, that's I've heard of other authors doing it that way too, though. They don't go by word count but by chapters. I think that's interesting too. It's like I have to write 3 chapters today.
It helps if I can do that and kind of get into the rhythm and stick with that chapter. That works better for me. But I do find, like, maybe every 4th day I don't write anything, and I'm just thinking about the details or a piece of dialogue that I want to work on, and I just have sort of a break day to think about things.
And do you use Word, or you use like one of those writing, like Scrivener's type software?
I use Word. I haven't tried to get fancy with anything else. It works for me, but I also do make a lot of paper notes, and now and then I write something longhand.
And do you have like a dedicated spot where you always write, or do you like mix it up with going to coffee shops and stuff like that?
I have a dedicated spot. I've kind of taken over the front room of our house, and I have my whole desk here. I've got the printer, bookcases, boxes where I keep notes, and kind of an inelegant way of displaying all my stuff. I use blue painter's tape, and I have all these notes taped on the wall in front of my desk. So it's doesn't look really great when you walk in the front door and you see all this stuff taped all over the wall, but my husband doesn't seem to care. And, people know by now I'm just the crazy lady who writes and sticks stuff on her wall. So what are they going to do? That keeps me kind of focused and grounded, and helps me create a sense of urgency. So I do just sit and get stuff done. But about once a week, I do meet a writing buddy at a coffee shop, and we talk through. She helps me with some of my plot points. I help her, and then we'll just write for about 2 hours. And that's really helpful.
Yeah, I used to go to these meetups here in where I live, and they call them "Shut Up and Writes," and like a whole bunch of writers we meet, and then we just say, "Hey, what's going on?" We chat a little bit, then we just start writing, and you just kind of feed off from that energy. I've found that very, very nice. I've gone to a few of those now, and I've been enjoying those.
I think that's a good way to put it, that you feed off the energy of somebody else who's doing something creative. And if you're around creative people, you tend to want to match that energy and be creative too. It's whatever it is, it's really helpful.
Yeah. And do you still find time to read?
I do, although I find it distracting to read fiction when I'm in a particularly creative time. It takes me about 40 days, and that's really dedicated 40 days, to create one bad first draft. And during that time, it's very distracting to read fiction. I'm okay if I'm reading nonfiction, if I'm reading research for the book, but I have to take a break from fiction during that initial, first draft phase.
And how long does it take from like when you first start writing that the book is now available for sale? How long does it?
That's a really hard thing to say, because I've ended up writing books that I've written them, like The Hidden Light of Mexico City. I put it in a drawer. I took it out. I tinkered with it. I put it back in the drawer. The same thing with the romantic thriller Awakening Macbeth, which was just released. I wrote that, put it in a drawer, thought about putting it out. No, not right. I wanted to build up the Amelia Cruz series before I brought that out. It's a little hard to predict. I tend to write a draft and then put it aside. And in fact, the book I'm working on now, Pacific Reaper, which will be the 5th Amelia Cruz, I actually wrote that 2 years ago, intending for it to be the 3rd Amelia Cruz. It didn't have all of the elements of the personal relationship between Amelia and the hotel manager, Kurt Rucker, that I wanted. So I said, I'll put that aside and make it number 4. But other things got in the way, different stories that I wanted to tell, and now it's going to be number 5. So I'm not the best person to ask that question.
It's fascinating how that works, though. You have the story, you want to write it, but sometimes it just the timing is a little off. That's pretty interesting.
Well, sometimes I think an author has to be strategic. If you have that ability to hold things, to be strategic and build your author platform, to publish things in a certain order. in order to build your platform rather than, hey, they're ready to go out the door, I'll just put them out.
Yeah, it's so great with the whole indie movement now too, where it's there's no. It probably, like you said before with the other series, it probably would have been a hard sell with a regular traditional publisher to publish a book about a female detective in Acapulco. So this is cool that we could, as indie writers, we can get these stories out without too many barriers thrown at us.
That's true. I think as long as you're putting out a very high quality product, the world's your oyster when it comes to being an indie author. You're competing, yes, but you're competing against quality. The quality of your cover, of your story, of the brand that you're putting out. But it's great. There are so many opportunities now for indie authors.
And yeah, that is such a key too. Like you said, put in a good story, a good product out, basically, just like the traditionals do.
And I have noticed that some of the traditional authors that you're accustomed to seeing a very, very high quality product, maybe they're rushing. But I've noticed a couple of books lately that are coming out of big publishers. They've got continuity errors. They've got word selection errors. So I'm not sure that had I gone a different route, that I'd be very happy with the end result.
Well, yeah, because the control. I mean, yeah, some of the things would have been out of your hands, I would assume. So yeah, I've never gone the traditional route either. I never even sent a query letter out. But when I talk to people who have, the smaller names, not if you're like Michael Connolly or whatever, that's a whole different world. But for like a regular, getting started type of a writer, you really don't have any say at all during that process.
That's true, and I'm somewhat of a type A when it comes to something that's got my name on it. I want it to be the best that it can be, and I can bring together the editors, the cover artists, and the representation that I need without having to rely on a publisher who will take their cut to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they still expect you to do the most of the work anyway. So even if you're with a small publishing house. And do you find, do you interact a lot with your readers? Are you like active on like Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff? You mentioned Pinterest before.
Yes, definitely. When I first started, I knew that my website and a blog, Facebook and Twitter were the first three things I had to do in order to start building that author platform. So I now have about 10,000 followers across Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter, with Facebook being the most active platform, I think, although Pinterest and Goodreads send a lot of traffic to my website. I find that interesting. Pinterest is so addictive and so fun. Whether you're looking for books or cover art ideas or ideas for building your website and blogging, that's just a wealth of information, as is Twitter. Not only is Twitter a great place to interact with people, but it's a great source of research.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. Yeah, your website is, I'm just looking at it now, it's a great looking website too, so you've done a good job there.
Thank you, because I did that.
Oh, you did?
I did that on my own.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
When I first started a website, I didn't know anyone to hire, and it was a skill I've been wanting to learn. So I put that together, and in 2016, when I upgraded all the book covers, I really wanted to take that signature hot kind of cherry red that Matt Chase is using on the covers and use it on the website. But I also wanted something that was very clean. So I'm now using the Divi theme from Elegant Themes, and it's easy to work with. and I don't have to spend too much time on it. But I'm lucky in that I do get a lot of traffic to the website. I get a lot of eyes on the blog, and I get a lot of email signups. When you go to the carmenamato.net, folks can download a free copy of the Detective Amelia Cruz Starter Library. So you get the prequel, which explains how she actually got to be the first female detective on the Acapulco police force, and a story that I wrote, and it's not available anywhere else. It's called The Angler, and it's the story from the real-life murder of my Catholic priest in Mexico City. And his killer, true life, was never found. This was 2007. But I used that episode to write a story. And, of course, in fiction, Amelia gets her man.
Oh wow! So that actually, so it's based on a true story that you experienced, but you put it in Amelia's world. You fictionalized it. Wow, that's
yeah. I fictionalized it, but yes, it was the murder of Father Richard Junius in Mexico City in 2007.
Oh wow! And they haven't found the killer, huh?
They never found the killer. And one thing that was really terrific is his niece reached out and sent me an email after she read the story, and talked about what happened in the immediate aftermath and how her family was notified. Really interesting.
Yeah, and I'll have links to your website on the website if listeners are, but it's carmenamato.net.
Correct.
I'm looking at that right now. It's giving a lot of goodies there. So great way to get to know your writing and everything. So encourage people to go check that out.
Yeah, I do a monthly newsletter for those who subscribe and get a free copy of the Detective Amelia Cruz Starter Library. It's called Mystery Ahead. And so every month I give a little pro tip about writing. I usually have an interview with another mystery author. I do book reviews and answer questions from the mailbag. And for about 2 days after every edition goes out, I answer a lot of email. I get a lot of responses that way, probably more so even than on Facebook. People are emailing me who are subscribers.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. I'll have to check that one out. And then, I'm glad to hear that they're using Divi. I actually purchased that a few weeks ago, but I haven't haven't dived into it yet.
You haven't divvied.
Yeah, I was like, that's a little.
You can do a lot. You really can do a lot with Divi. I think I've only scratched the surface with how to put together pages to really showcase your writing and kind of like your author personality and things that you like and pictures. But it's a great way to build a website. You'll like it.
Cool. Good to hear. All right, Carmen. Well, I'm not going to take too much more of your time here, but before I let you go, do you have anything else you want to say to our listeners? We have a little combo. There's readers, but there's also now a lot of aspiring writers that are listening to the podcast. So, a little final thoughts before you go.
I'd say, don't fall in love with your first draft. Fall in love with your characters. Fall in love with your setting, your plot line, but your first draft, especially folks who have done NaNoWriMo, and I've done it a number of times, it's a first draft, and just keep polishing until it sings. And for readers who love mysteries and thrillers, you are in good company. That is, as I said, my favorite genre, and I hope they'll take advantage and get a copy of the starter library. See if you like Amelia Cruz, feisty gal who's in the pressure cooker that is the beautiful city of Acapulco, and fighting crime that has a big dose of salsa along with it.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much, Carmen, for being on the show. It was nice talking to you.
Alan, thanks so much. You have a great afternoon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meet the Thriller Author. I'd like to ask you to please review and rate this podcast over on iTunes. It really helps me get the word out. If you take a few seconds of your time to do that, it would be much appreciated. You can also visit my website at thrillingreads.com/podcast for show notes on this episode, as well as information about the podcast in general. And you can also sign up for my mailing list there. You'll be getting special offers from our guests, as well as information, behind-the-scenes information on the podcast. And please do visit my author website at alanpeterson.com. I appreciate your support. And so until next episode, I will talk to you then.